The 2024 Met Gala took place last Monday, and people are pissed. Now, if you're anything like me, your knowledge of the Met Gala doesn't extend much further than the fact that it happens from time to time. Apparently, it's a charity event that benefits the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute, and it's held the first Monday of May every year. How much does it cost to get into an event like that? Well, if you want to go by yourself, it'll cost you about $75,000 a ticket. But if you want to make some friends, tables start at $350,000. So hopefully you have everybody's Venmo before you pay for that with your card. What do you get for all this money? Well, what we do know is that you get to tour the exhibition, you get to have a meal, and then there's a performance at the end. This year, I believe Ariana Grande performed. Outside of that very basic outline, the rest is a secret. Given the high price tag and this exclusive secrecy that surrounds the event, it's easy to see why many people see this as nothing more than a self-indulgent show of excess in even the best of years. But with the cost of living rising while wages stay stagnant and the crisis in Gaza looming large in the public consciousness, this is definitely not the best of years. The night before the event, just across the East River in Brooklyn, an event was held called the Debt Gala. Founded by Amanda Corday, Tom Costello, and Molly Gaby? I'm really sorry, Molly. I tried to find a pronunciation guide, but couldn't get it, so I'll go with Gabe for right now. But they founded this event in 2023. The event benefits the Debt Collective and $4, which are organizations which, among other things, are dedicated to tackling the medical debt crisis in America. Not only are these groups dedicated to causes that are much more relevant to the average American, but the outfits from their red carpet are much more down to earth as well. Molly even went so far as to say that the Met is a fun cultural touchstone to be distracted by, but that it feels disconnected from the rest of the world. Groups of pro-Palestinian activists felt the same way the night of the Met Gala itself when they lined up outside to protest the event. Like the Super Bowl and the Oscars earlier this year, many people in the public felt that this was an attempt to distract the American populace from American-supported atrocities being committed in Gaza. And while I do generally agree with this sentiment, I think it's more a sign of American society's ability to persist in frivolity, even in the face of immense suffering, rather than a coordinated effort by the powers that be to actively distract the masses. In other words, these events are already scheduled and happen annually, but the celebrities and executives involved certainly aren't going to let a couple war crimes get in the way of their calendar. So yes, the entire event itself illustrates just how out of touch many of those who attended are. But there was one shining moment at this year's Met Gala that we can all point to and say, yes, that's the moment. That was the moment that we all understood where Steve Buscemi was coming from when he asked if we think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he created. Haley Kalil, aka Haley Bailey, I guess, is a model and influencer who was a pre-Met Gala show host for E! News, the worst thing to end up watching whenever you get home from school. But shortly following the gala, she posted this TikTok.
Let them eat cake.
Now in the video, she can clearly be seen wearing an outfit that is what I believe to be clearly modeled after European aristocracy, and she's lip syncing the phrase, "let them eat cake." Now if you've never heard this before, or that doesn't mean anything to you, this quote is often probably misattributed to Marie-Antoinette, the last queen of France, who was on the throne as the French Revolution kicked off. Life for a French peasant back then was pretty terrible. And the common folk in the country that Marie-Antoinette ruled over were literally starving to death. They didn't even have simple bread to sustain themselves. Meanwhile, the ruling class had exorbitant wealth that they didn't know what to do with. So the story goes that upon hearing about the lack of bread in her kingdom, the queen, apparently so rich that she could not even fathom being entirely out of food, uttered the famous line, "let them eat cake." Almost as if to say, well, I know when I run out of bread, I just move on to the cake that I can afford because I've been stealing all the peasants' money. So maybe they should just try that. Why are you starving to death when you can just try eating cake instead? But as it turns out, it's likely that she never actually said this. For starters, the phrase that Mary A is supposed to have uttered more directly translates from French to English to mean that she was referring to like brioche rather than like a dessert cake that we would think of nowadays. Don't get me wrong, brioche still requires like eggs and milk and is entirely more expensive to produce than bread, so it still shows that she has no idea what's going on. We can't even just mix wheat with flour and a little bit of yeast. How are we going to make an entire brioche loaf, or let alone a layer cake or something like that, you know? So correcting for this slight mistranslation translation doesn't really make her appear any less out of touch than before. Even still, there's no actual evidence that she said anything about baked goods. Don't get me wrong, she was oblivious to the needs of her people. She wouldn't have remained a wealthy monarch if she wasn't. But it turns out, as long as civilization has existed, the common man has been fed up with the rich and powerful who exploit and misunderstand them. Tales like this exist in stories and folklore from many cultures. For example, a similar story from about 2 centuries before, from what is now Germany, makes mention of a noblewoman who asks why those who are starving don't simply eat a sweet roll. It's literally the historical version of, oh, you're poor? Just don't be that. What, you're homeless? Get a house, idiot. Why do I have to be the one to explain this to you? You're hungry? Have you tried eating then? What's the issue? As for how it became linked with the French Queen, no one really knows for sure. This phrase was first put to paper by French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Sorry, pardon my French.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
In one of the books that he wrote, where he tells a version of this apparently classic folklore story and attributes the quote to what he calls a great princess. Now, at the time of writing, Marie-Antoinette was only a child, so many historians don't think that this is who he was referring to, and some have suggested that the revolutionaries that were inspired by Rousseau's work falsely attributed this quote to the queen to try and stir up the revolution and get some more backing behind it. But there's not a ton of physical evidence for that either, so it's anybody's guess how it ended up here. In the end, the first time the phrase was linked to Marie-Antoinette, at least the earliest that we found so far at the time of writing, was from more than 50 years after her and her husband, Louis XVI, were executed by guillotine for crimes against the state, following the end of the French Revolution. Which, side note, makes me wonder exactly how the British royal family not only got to keep their heads, but also like their money and status, but that's a topic for another time. A French writer at the time claimed to disprove the rumor by finding the quote in a book from 1760. But given that he referred to it as a rumor, it's likely that he was just looking into something that he had heard from someone else rather than something that was established fact. I tell you all this to say that given that Marie-Antoinette likely never uttered this phrase, we may have time paradoxed ourselves into a moment where we are witnessing the truest example of what is apparently a universal sentiment throughout civilized history. Not only did Haley Bailey so brazenly utter the words that have been used to exemplify elitism and class divides for centuries while covering an event that seems to celebrate those exact things, but she was also so out of touch with the origin of that phrase that she couldn't even see the trap that she was setting for herself. Obviously, she and many of the celebs who actually attended the Met Gala, because allegedly, Haley never even made it there. She wasn't even invited. A lot of them received backlash for this, right? I'm sure the celebrities who were actually at the event were like, dude, you're blowing up our spot. Like, people are gonna be upset when they see us on the red carpet. But like, I mean, as long as nobody says anything crazy, I think we should be in the clear. God damn it. Did someone say something crazy while we were in there? Yeah, looks like they did. But while the queen lost her head to a physical guillotine, Haley and a host of other celebrities have been met with what people on TikTok are calling a digital guillotine. Many users on TikTok are just plain fed up with celebrity culture. To them, these are people who profit off of their following, but don't seem to care about or understand them. Many people are posting block lists weekly or even daily of celebrities that they encourage their followers to block and hide from their feeds. Those being targeted the most are the celebrities who haven't used their platform to speak out against the injustices happening in Gaza.
I made a Google Doc of every celebrity that attended the Met Gala, and now I'm going through and writing if they've been silent or if they've been using their platform to speak up about the genocide in Gaza.
Taylor Swift has lost around 300,000 followers on TikTok, and Kim Kardashian, Hailey Bieber, and a list of other celebrities are not having a good go of it either. The whole idea behind hashtag #Blockout2024 is that celebrities are only rich and famous because we allow them to be. Even bad press is good press for them because it leads to engagement that they can profit off of. So the logical solution to that is to block them and forget their names, remove their power, and kick them off the internet, basically. Honestly, I'm here for it. It feels like every week Hollywood spawns another random B-list celeb that I'm supposed to care about just because, and I'm over it. I'm looking at you, Glenn Powell. That being said, it really does feel like a helpless situation because for every person who sees one of these block lists and actually goes through and blocks those celebrities, 1,000 people are mentioning their names in every interaction with that post. They're still driving engagement, keeping their name in the news. And for that, I don't know what the solution is. For movements like this to work, right, they have to be widespread and talked about online. But in order for people to coordinate their actions, right, they have to mention their targets. And for that, I don't really know what the solution is. If you have any ideas, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But I think that's it for today, guys. I just was blown away when I saw what Haley Bailey posted. Not because I was particularly incensed by that. I don't need someone quoting Marie-Antoinette to be like, okay, now I know you really don't get me. I'm well aware that many of the people who are in this space don't have any concept of what a normal person goes through on a daily basis. I just think it's so crazy that this "let them eat cake" quote existed within popular culture of so many different societies all throughout human history. It gets assigned to Marie-Antoinette by way of either propaganda or some other misattribution that we will never know probably. And then almost 300 years later, at an event that certainly would have sent the French peasants into head chopping mode, an influencer utters those words without any frame of reference for what they mean. It is so perfect, so poetic, and it makes me so sad. Last thing, if you want to support the people of Palestine, I'm going to leave a link to the Creatives for Palestine Fund in the comments. Some of my favorite YouTubers are involved in that: Curtis Connor, Chad, Eddie Bareback, and Jarvis Johnson. 50 plus other creators, I believe, are all a part of this project to raise $1 million for various organizations that are committed to providing aid for Palestine. So if you want to donate, I'll leave the link down there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Aaron Trevino. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.